let you offer introduction to this final teaching, if that works well for you, or the first introduction, and then I'll offer the second one. If you have not yet begun to record, maybe now would be the time to begin.
I did.
Please go ahead.
I did start the recording.
So then, I'm very happy to see you today for this fourth teaching and discussion on moral awakening in this 4-part series. And I want to thank Sikyu, Scholastic Institute, Choki Gyaltsen University. Did I say that right?
Yes.
Yeah. For your wonderful idea in having this series of live web teachings, and also recording them and making them available to those many friends and supporters who are interested in this Dhamma and not able to join live. So to all those who are not able to be here live right now, also my greetings through time and space to you. And I want to thank our monastic community here, our Tathālokā Sangha at Dhammadrini Vihara in Santa Rosa, Northern California, which is where I am right now, where this body is apparently located, at our temporary vihara. And it might be the first and the last live web series of teachings here at this vihara, because it's looking like things may be going ahead with our permanent or long term. Because permanent we have to put in quotes, nothing in the conditioned world being permanent. Our long term owned by the community. Bhikkhunī Vihara, the one that just when we first began this series, that our community looked at on the last full moon, the lunar anniversary of Mahapajapati Gautami Teri and the early Bhikkhunis Parinibbana, their great and final nirvana on that full moon day. We looked at a place, and now things are progressing, and it seems like maybe by the astro-solar New Year, South and Southeast Asian New Year, if it's going to be approved, likely it will be. The things will be done by then, if not by this coming full moon, which is not far away. So I hope that if that new Bhikkhuni monastery comes into being here in Northern California, that it might be the site for future courses, future series of in-person teachings and also web teachings like this. I want to thank my monastic community and all those who are here for being willing to have their lunch, their final meal of the day at a much earlier time today due to daylight savings, and also the time of this teaching, and for all of their support during this whole series. Is there anything that you would like to say before we begin, Anila?
Nothing special, except I think everybody here knows you, so perhaps we could start, and I'm looking forward to it.
I want to tell you, rather than having those on from the UK this week, we have those from the UK here in person with us. So this is the very nice thing. So I'm going to begin with a brief chant, and for all those who know the chant, you're welcome to join in. And if you don't know the chants, then it's fine to hum along or just attune your heart to the sound or the meaning of this ancient chant together. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Dhammang sangham namasami. My reverence to the triple gem and passing through deep, extensive time and space to my original teacher, the blessed, noble, and fully awakened one, the Buddha. So, for this last teaching, part 4 of 4 in the Moral Awakening series, this time our title is Applied Discernment, the Work of the Path. And this title actually came on request. So as many of the teachings during this time have arisen from those who are watching and listening and present together, and what arose of importance in this path of practice in the teaching in their hearts. So in our first class, or the first teaching, we spoke on moral awakening in its fundamental aspect of piti and ottappa. So if anyone listens to this teaching now and wishes to reference back to the first class, then we spoke extensively on the meaning of piti ottappa as both the foundation of the path as well as a fruition state or a fruit state in the natural state of mind and of behavior of one who has experienced deep development and growth in the path. The second class we spoke on karma, sustainability, and liberation, with special emphasis on the environment. How the teachings can be seen in our society related to what some people perceive as the environmental crisis, and discerning wise behavior and livelihood, both for us as individuals and also at the level of society, and the Dhamma being a culture. In our third class on request, the time of International Women's Day, we spoke on the aspect of moral awakening related to women in Buddhism and women's essential roles, rights, and responsibilities, at least as they present in the early Buddhist teachings, which I think, looking at the earliest known Buddhist teachings on this subject, there's a lot that is of inspiration and really of illumination for our contemporary times, sometimes even more so than cultures that may have arisen meanwhile. Sometimes the heart of the old teachings seems like it might be even more well matching to our contemporary times with regards to this subject. So we looked at women's roles, rights, and responsibilities, especially as leaders in Buddhism, as teachers, as practitioners, and as enablers and facilitators of the path, both for themselves and for others, which is the way that they're empowered in the early Buddhist teachings. So now, on special request from those who are the the course participants, we've come to applied discernment, the work of the path. So I'll begin with that now. Now, discernment, or the application of discernment in terms of path work, is a topic that is classified as belonging to the higher training in morality and ethical conduct. In the Noble Eightfold Path, however, it falls both in the Samma Sati, that's the right mindfulness pathfold, as well as in the Samadhi division of the path. What I'm speaking about now is when the whole Eightfold Path, which would encompass all of the path, when it's divided into 3 trainings or 3 divisions in morality, sila, samadhi, meditation, and panya, wisdom. So in one way, this topic of applied discernment falls into the sila fold as the training in the higher training in morality and ethical conduct. In another way, with sati, with mindfulness together, it falls into the samadhi, meditation, division of the path. And in a third way, it merges in panya, or prajna, as it both originates from and also works in establishing right view in the path, which is the work of the wisdom division, or the panyasika, the higher training in wisdom in the path. Let's take a look at why this is. This is a very important topic because it is fundamentally integrated in all 3 of the 3 trainings. So this is very interesting. Now, there are 2 types of discernment, and let me pause for a moment. I'm in need of tech support because my calendar has just overruled the program here. So let's take a pause for a moment, and it can just be closed down and shrunk on the side there. And on the upper left-hand corner, you can shrink that. Not close, but shrink. The yellow. There we go. So I really appreciate Samanera Niyanika and her technical support for this entire series of teachings, as well as right now, because as so often happens, my calendar needed to be controlled in order to, and restrained in order to protect the Dhamma, the practice, and the teaching. And so I appreciate your support in this one more time. I think it's something that here in Northern California is actually a big issue for many people. And in the United States, I'm not sure about in our world today, but somewhat related to one's calendar and schedule is a very important part of the practice that the Buddha did not specifically expound upon, but by inference, we can understand, according to the great standards in the teaching, that practicing samvara with any kind of things that tend to arise and then obstruct the Dhamma or our ability to practice, that it's good to practice wise discernment and potentially to practice restraint with those things. Now, I don't have so much difficulty with charging elephants or that kind of thing, or even with when I go to stay in the forest, even with a lot of creatures in the forest, as I read about in the suttas. I love the creatures in the forest, and generally I get along with them well. The human creatures are a little more challenging sometimes for me than the animal creatures, in fact. But let's take a look now at discernment. And I've chosen to focus on 2 main types of discernment today. And the first type of discernment that I want to focus on is sampajanya in Pali, in Sanskrit, sampajanya. And this word is often coupled with sati, or what we regularly translate as mindfulness. But in fact, the very popular teachings on mindfulness these days could um, regularly be like the combination of these two words. And in the Pali text, we find these two words conjoined in two different ways. One is sati, sampajanya, and the other is sampajanyo satima. So, in the greater discourse on mindfulness, the Maha Satipatthana Sutta, we have the refrain over and over again of the Sampajanno Satima Vinaya Loke Abhijja Domanasanam. And so there's an old debate between Buddhist schools, in fact. Does the sati come first and then the sampajanya, or does the sampajanya come first and then the sati? Which predominates, which gives rise to which? It's an ancient debate in different schools of Buddhism. In the Pali text, we find it going both ways, in fact. And this is very important for our understanding. As we spoke about Hiri-Ottappa in the first lecture, there's the way that's a base or a foundational practice that enables everything else, and then there's the way where it becomes a fruit or a fruition. When we have deeply established that and touched into it in its natural basis, in our like uncorrupted, undistorted nature of mind or of the heart. Yes, so we find sampajanya present in the Pali text in both ways. Sati, sampajanya is normally translated as mindfulness and clear comprehension. Ajahn Sumedho, one of the great contemporary Western teachers in the Theravada tradition, speaks of sampajanya not as discernment, but as intuitive awareness. This is very interesting. It seems to me like he's actually speaking about it from the fruition level in a way. Means once you've tapped into what that is, then what your state of awareness is. And it's interesting that he uses a word that we don't really find in Pali, but find often in English, that is intuition. So for some people, for their sense of morality or their conscience, they associate this also with intuition, a special knowing, a different way of knowing that's not necessarily intellectual or discursive thought, but another sort of knowing, another kind of knowing. So Ajahn Sumedho also speaks about sampajanya as apperception. That is awareness with recognition of being aware. So one is aware that one is aware. And this is actually very interesting with regards to the literal meaning of sampajanya, which could be translated literally, some being like all around or complete or holistic or encompassing, and then pa being like strong or special, or a word of special emphasis in a very positive way. Pa or pra, like in the Thai tradition, pra is even what people call the Buddhist monks. And then it's attached to so many words to emphasize that they're special or spiritual or noble or holy or excellent or wonderful or so it's a kind of a wonderful and excellent word of emphasis. And then ja, as in the word jhana or dhyana, this ja also means to know. Even in Indic languages and some Eastern languages, ja is the way of saying yes, an affirmation. So it's like, yes, I know, I understand, I see, I know. So it's like a short word that summarizes seeing and knowing, and can even be used as yes and affirmation. And then so ja means to know, and even jhana then, or dhyana, and these are special states of deep and profound knowing and experience, like an absorption into a full and holistic type of knowing where there isn't that fragmentation or distraction or discursion present in the mind, and so that there's a fullness of knowing or a unity of knowing. Now, those who like to practice jhana here are getting like big and deep, wonderful smiles on their faces while I'm speaking about this subject. So it could also be called a complete kind of knowing. And then nya. We have this root in English, no, gnosis. We say gnosis, G-N-O. Gnosis, also nya, in Sanskrit, in Pali, also means to know. It's the root word in panya, which is also that strong and special knowing, pragya, prajna, depending upon how you pronounce it. And so it has, this word is very special. It has a holistic word of emphasis, and then another strong word of emphasis to show that it's very special and to bring your attention to it. And then one word for special knowing, and then another word for special knowing. It's related to insight, knowledge, and wisdom. So according to the commentary or exposition of the Digha Nikaya, the long discourses of the Buddha, there are 4 kinds of sampajanya, which are very important to know and to understand about, and are to be practiced with or applied in practice. So if we understand sampajanya as a type of discernment, a discerning knowing that leads to wisdom or even is the result of wisdom. So both to be cultivated as a foundation or activator for wisdom, as well as the knowing that comes in result, the clear knowing that is associated with the special insight knowledges. So the Visuddhimagga, which is one of the most popular commentaries in Theravada Buddhism, it's also called the Path of Purification. The Visuddhimagga is also one of the main supportive teachings for many of the great contemporary Vipassana and insight masters, particularly from Burmese traditions. And this teaching that I'm going to mention right now, I'll go into briefly, is one that I've listened to hours of lecture on from these wonderful, most excellent, I'll say like the lions among men or lions among humans, these great teachers. One of my teachers is Sayadaw U Pandita. And I listened to him speak for hours just on the meaning of sampajanya, breaking down the word day after day in his lectures during the long ongoing retreat time. And then he's emphasized this particular teaching, which I'm going to go over with you now. Some of those who are here, who've been with me for a longer time, may have heard this again and again. I feel like it's worth it to touch on one more time, or for those who've never heard it, very valuable to know. 4 kinds of sampajanya. This isn't just to know, but also to understand and work with effectively, to apply in practice. So those of you who have listened to the first 3 teachings in this series will remember the teaching to Rahula at Mango Stone. So this is actually an elaboration of that same teaching and a different way of looking at it in application, breaking it down into stages and then looking at it in application. So this is the application of that kind of discernment, our path work. So the first type is sadhaka sampajanya. And the first stage here that's important to know is to have a theoretical knowledge of what is wholesome and unwholesome, what is kusala and akusala. So kusala karma, or akusala karma, kusala dhammas, or akusala dhammas. And this is to be then considered and reflected upon. So fundamentally, our precepts are one of the places where we get initial information about what is kusala and akusala. And this is very simplified and is meant to just protect us from the gravest of dangers in terms of behavior that could be very harmful to ourselves or others. Very, very grave. Killing. Yes, to understand that basically in the Buddha's teaching, killing, taking the life of living beings would be considered unwholesome. Yes? And yet, then quite quickly, we begin to understand, even with regards to precepts, if one starts to study more, especially if one enters into monastic life and starts to study the Bhikkhu Vinaya or Bhikkhunī Vinaya, then you start to see, oh, there are these factors that are there to determine whether something is wholesome or unwholesome. And the first one is intention, and to look at your intention. And one of the kind of classic examples that's very nice for our steep mountain paths that are Aranya Bodhi Awakening Forest Hermitage on the Sonoma coast is if you're walking by someone on the path, you accidentally bump them, they fall to their death. Have you committed murder? Is your monastic life ended? You may feel such sorrow and regret. I didn't mean to do that. That wasn't my intention. You know, I never meant for that to happen. Oh, I so wish I could bring them back to life and feel so sorry. That would not be considered murder in the Buddhist teaching. Is there that we start to look into intention and perception and start to look in very deeply to the factors of our experience and our behavior. And so this is very important, related to the teaching to Rahula at Mango Stone. Then the Buddha is recommending even considering beforehand with regards discerning whether something is wholesome or unwholesome, thinking about it beforehand, imagining it really, and thinking, is it going to cause any harm or not? So you can refer back to that teaching again, especially when the recordings are available. So considering beforehand, considering during the action, and then considering and reflecting back on the action afterwards to discern and to develop the ability to discern, was that wholesome or unwholesome? Was that skillful or unskillful? Really, truly, was it wise or not? But not only is it wise, it's really also, is it moral? So it's the same question. Is it moral or is it wise? In this case, morality and wisdom are united with each other. And in terms of developing clear comprehension or sampajanya, this is the type of uniting point, because even for the samadhi factor, you're applying your mindfulness, you're focusing your mind on clear knowing, clear comprehension. So actually, I don't know how to ask this question really in English. You can ask, is it moral or is it wise? I don't know how to ask, is it samadhi? It doesn't make sense to ask, was it or is it meditation, except for those people who are really the dedicated practitioners in this path, who when you ask them, how many hours do you meditate in a day? And they say, from the time I wake up in the morning until the time that I go to sleep. And then you say, no, I mean, how much time do you sit in meditation? And they're like, well, that's not the all of my meditation. I practice meditation in other postures as well. There's walking meditation, standing meditation, sitting meditation, lying down meditation. In traditional monastic life, we love sweeping meditation. Wonderful woman master Deepama loved to teach about washing dishes meditation, cooking meditation, taking care of her child meditation. How amazing. And if someone told her that's not meditation you're doing, I don't know what she would say to them. Like, please go talk to another meditation master then, right? One who says it's only when you're sitting on your bum and with your eyes closed. But for those who say that their meditation encompasses everything, you could say this is a question of, it would be a question of morality, it would be a question of wisdom, it would also be a question of the full life meditation, or a question of clear comprehension, which is the discernment that bridges all three of the trainings. So in the development of discernment or sampajanya, then the theoretical idea about what's wholesome or unwholesome then needs to be applied in the situation, which is what we were just saying. And that's the second factor. That's called sapaya sampajanya. Now, in Thai language, there's the word sabai. If anyone was ever around Thai people, it's said so often, even maybe more than good morning or, good afternoon or good night or hello or this kind of thing. You hear sabai even in greetings, sabai ka, sabai naka. And people are asking, how are you, really? Or saying that they're well, or that they're experiencing well-being, but sabai really means well-matching. So it's taking that subject of whether something is kusala or akusala, karma, and then applying it to the situation. And this is where you start to have to really work your discernment, where it's a training in discernment, a real practice and a cultivation of discernment. Because we're asked to be aware with clear comprehension, and then taking that theoretical knowledge of Dhamma and what's wholesome or unwholesome, and then applying it to unique situations, each situation being unique, and then working with that discernment. And this is where the morality, the wisdom, the clear comprehension really has to work itself. Now, sometimes if people don't understand this as a foundational training, then they think about it just as a fruition, and then they think either they can do it or they can't. And if they try for 1 second or 2 seconds, and it's like they're not able to see and know that, not able to discern it clearly, then they just give up and think they don't have the ability to do that. And that's why I want to emphasize this as path work. Really as the application, as applying ourselves in this training at this time. And something that is a foundational practice that then also leads to further knowing and further awakening. So awakening of morality and awakening of wisdom. Yes, awakening in meditation as a whole life, whole training practice. So then we want to see, is it well matching? Is it suitable? Is it the right time? Is it the right place? Is it the right person? So this is then cultivating knowing, clear comprehension, discernment, and developing wisdom through working with this contemplation over and again. Now, this leads naturally into the third factor, which is called Kochara Sampajanya. Someone might know about Ko from Ajahn Brahm's teaching. He talks about Ko Mayam. Ko is a cow, and Mayam is the dung from the cow. And so he jokes about this a lot. It's a way of saying something that's like, if he said it in different language in English, he wouldn't be allowed as a Buddhist monk to say it, but if you say in Pali, then it's all right. Because, but here, Kochara is the pasture. Now here, if you could see around in this space here, this vihara is surrounded by pastures. And in fact, there are lamas, not in robes, but the animals with kind of like camels, with long fur, and also goats, and also horses, and also cattle around. So we can just look out, all those who are here are now looking out the big window at the Bodhi tree and seeing the green pastures on the Sonoma hillscape here. And that pasture is the Gochara. For Buddhist monks, then Gochara is two different things. Gochara may be the place where you go for your alms round to collect your food, or it could be called, like for a particular monastery, the area around would be, I don't know, the membership field of that monastery. But for us as practitioners, our Gochara is often called our domain. So the domain of clear comprehension, this domain of practice or field of practice. So this is applying our knowledge of the Dhamma and of karma, what's wholesome and unwholesome, then to the time, place, person, the individual situation. And then this becomes the whole, this is our field of practice. And that field extends as far as you can extend it, out to being unlimited. The pastures here, I'm so sorry, they have fences on them. The animals cannot roam freely. Even the human beings are not allowed to roam freely here. We could get shot by someone with a gun for walking on their property. I hope human beings can evolve out of this. We don't need to have fences and lines and borders like this in this kind of way. If we awaken our morality and wisdom and experience a kind of societal level or cultural level upgrade in this regard. I understand there are the places in Europe where there's no such thing as you go walking through the fields and pastures around Amaravati Monastery. I heard it's just fine to do that. No one's going to take out their gun and shoot you for that. People still have this sense of openness of heart and of sharing the earth that we live upon together. I hope that we don't forget this entirely. And for those who haven't thought of it before, I hope that can be awakened within them, because it is part of our human heritage, in fact, and that of other living beings as well. So, Gochara is the domain of practice. Here we're talking specifically about discernment, developing discernment and clear comprehension. And then that leads naturally into the fourth. And the fourth is, when I first learned this, I laughed when I heard what the fourth was, because they're all so intuitive and obvious when you think about the progression and development of the cultivation in this path of practice. The fourth is really, it's like fruition, but it's one that starts to develop immediately when we apply ourselves in this way, which is the thing that's so nice about it. The fourth is called asamoha sampajanya. So sammoha means to be completely confused, to be completely deluded. Moha is delusion in the three poisons. Then the last one, actually, they're all rooted in moha. Delusion, confusion, ignorance. Moha is like a synonym for avidya, for non-knowledge, non-comprehension, non-clarity, not seeing and knowing the things truly and clearly as they are. And some is, just as in Sampajanya, makes it whole, holistic and complete. So it would be like completely confused. And truly, actually, Luangpo Sumedho, who I was talking about earlier, likes to emphasize that it's even a step in awakening. When you have the Sampajanya, the level of Sampajanya to be aware, to know that you're ignorant about something, and to know that clearly know that you're confused about something, that's a step in the right direction. When you have that happen in the Buddhist path, you shouldn't feel badly about it. It's, I'm clearly comprehending ignorance. I'm clearly comprehending confusion. Clearly, I'm really seeing delusion far more clearly than I ever saw it before. This is actually considered a very good thing, a very important thing. The clear comprehension of dukkha, of suffering and of the causes of suffering is really important aspect of awakening and of right view. Clearly understanding the Four Noble Truths. This is the beginning of wisdom happening there. So if you ever have that happen, which happens to most of us at some time or another, if you're practicing properly, if you've never had this happen, you're not practicing right, I think. Because often this is one of the first excellent and progressive stages, is to realize we had thought we were so smart and we know this and we know that, and to realize deeply and clearly how deep the delusion is and where there really is confusion, and to clearly understand that. However, we're talking about a further stage here. We've been applying ourselves and practicing with these first three aspects and in developing them. Then the result is asamoha, which means in terms of what's important to understand in the wisdom fold of the path, what causes suffering and what doesn't, with regards our behavior. Behaviors of body, our behaviors of speech, and especially our root key behaviors of mind. We're seeing and understanding that clearly in the unique and individual situations. There's a way that this is broken down in traditional Indian culture, where this is called like 84,000 moments of the day, then 84,000 precepts. And these are the precepts that even if you become a bhikkhu or a bhikkhuni and you have 200 some precepts or 300 some precepts, you actually can't really, they're all like pointing to these 84,000 precepts, which means to be able to have clear comprehension and discernment and apply that discernment in each moment of awareness. So this is through breaking down the moments of awareness in a day, 24 hours, then 60 minutes in an hour, and then 60 seconds in a minute, and then broken down into then 84,000 of these fractions of a second in which we can come to awareness and actually make a conscious choice, have a conscious discernment, and then make a moral and ethical choice of integrity, considering then for what I know of what is wholesome, unwholesome, of the causes of suffering or non-causes of suffering, how does that apply to this very situation? Yeah, and that leads to asamoha sampajanya, which means the opposite, the polar opposite of being completely confused. It leads to being completely unconfused. The polar opposite of being completely deluded, it leads to being undiluted in the ways that are emphasized in this path. So this is where, for sampajanya, then we come to where we're working through the factors of the practice, and then as we go through these factors of practice, we bump into the result that comes naturally from this type of work. Now, if it weren't possible for us, maybe only the Buddha would have awakened, and then he would have taught to others, and others would have said, sadhu, 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 just in faith in the Buddha's teaching, and just worship him as a god or as an avatar, and then just believe what he said. But no, our blessed one, our Buddha, taught a path of practice, a path of training for ourselves, which is effective, and so it leads to these kinds of results. So then clear awareness, sampajanya in this case, or intuitive knowing, leads into what is called that special wise and clearly discerning knowledge or knowing that is called jnana. Yes, that is the root in wisdom. And in insight meditation traditions, this is called vipassana jnana. Yes, so this is special insight knowledge that then arises from working in this kind of way. One of the other famous teachers from Thai Theravada traditions, who's known internationally, Ajahn Buddhadasa. In Thai, he's called Ajahn Buddhatat. So same, but pronounced a little bit differently. He emphasized sampajanya, and this practice of sampajanya, he developed a kind of a what's it called? Not a logo, catchphrase, slogan. He called sampajanya in this training in sampajanya, wisdom in action. Yeah. So this is very nice. It could also be called morality in action and meditation in action. In fact, it's the harmony and the union of all three. So now that we've come to the Nya, I already started talking about the second word that's commonly translated as discernment. One of our great translators, the Venerable Tathālokā Bhikkhunī, often gives interesting and unique translations of words from the Pali, different than Venerable Bhikkhu Bodhi or some of the other translators. So the second type of discernment or factor of discernment that's very, very closely related, but then definitely moving from the samadhi division into the wisdom division, is the division that the wisdom division is named for. That is panya. Ajahn Thanissaro translates panya also as discernment. So this is quite interesting. So sampajanya may be translated as discernment, and panya also. And then ya, again, the root in there is just the knowing, the cultivating and developing the knowing, not only a passive knowing, but an effective knowing that's applied discernment and the work in the path. So for panya, today I turn to the Panya Sutta. Yes, in Pali. Now there's famous Prajna Paramita sutras in Sanskrit. In Pali we also have Panya Sutta, but the long name of this sutta is different. This Panya Sutta, or discourse on discernment, discourse on discerning wisdom, in the Pali text comes from the Anguttara Nikaya, the numerical discourses of the Buddha. In the book of eights, it is sutta number 2. So 8.2, unless you're looking at the Pali Text Society, which always has different numbers for all the suttas. So if you wanted to look in the Pali Text Society, it is Pali Text Society 4.151. Wherever that comes from, I'm not sure. But bless their hearts for translating this, and that's the number. So it's the second sutta in the book of eights. Now in Pali, the longer name of this sutta is very lovely. So I'm going to share it with you. And unless you looked at the Pali text, you probably wouldn't see this name, because we love to make the name short in English, and you find it just under the name of the Panya Sutta. But the long name of it is the Adhi Brahmacharya Panya Sutta. Venerable Bhikkhu Bodhi has translated this as obtaining the wisdom that is fundamental to the living of the spiritual life. I'll say that again because it's just so beautiful. Adhi Brahmacharya Panya Sutta. Obtaining the wisdom that is fundamental to the living of the spiritual life. So in this sutta, why it's in the book of the eights is because it talks about 8 causes and 8 requisite conditions or practices that lead to the development of discerning wisdom and to its culmination. Yes, the sutta mentions this part very, very clearly. So it mentions giving rise to the factors that support wisdom, and then what increases those factors, and then what makes those factors plentiful, and then what further develops those factors, and then the culmination of those factors. And so it mentions all of these aspects or stages here. And then it gives 8 very simple things that we can do, that we can practice, that lead to all of these stages, which is so wonderful. Now, I want to mention that here, specifically in this sutta, in its refrain that I just mentioned, which is about there being these 8 requisite conditions or practices that lead to wisdom of discernment as the basis of the spiritual life and causes them to increase, for them to become plenty, for them to develop further, and then for them to culminate in wisdom. That these factors, as they're laid out, are actually in the Noble Eightfold Paths. These are all factors of right effort. So here now, this practice of discernment is appearing in or being supported by, largely supported, enabled by another factor of the Noble Eightfold Path, which is, what is right effort? Samma Vayamo. Samma Vayamo. Yes, in Pali, Samma Vayamo. Many times people think that right effort, sometimes translated as right striving, means to try harder. And you need to try harder and harder and harder, and like you're not trying hard enough, or you're not doing good enough, or that kind of thing. And so you just need to harder, but then they have reasons for why they can't do anymore because they've come to their limits of what they can do, and then they feel they're a failure or a non-success in right effort. And especially in some places in India or Bengal, then also Samma Vayamo is translated as Samyak Virya. Virya then is like the strong effort, right? But how the Buddha says we should apply ourselves bravely, courageously, valiantly, how we should do that. Here in this case, the things that we're about to find actually none of them seem too harsh or hard. None of them seem to me even too impossible. There are 8. That's why this is in the Book of Eights. And they're quite simple, and I find them even gentle and beautiful. This is the amazing thing. Okay, so the first one, and they're so also intuitive. Probably many of us know these, but it's good to have them in context in terms of applying our discernment and cultivating our discerning wisdom. So the first is to live in apprenticeship, or to make oneself a student of a teacher or a companion in the holy life or in the spiritual life or in this path of practice, who we have a strong sense of hiriotapa in regards to. Now, this is an aspect of hiriotapa that we didn't speak about much in our first lecture, and a very important one for the further development of wisdom. We did speak about how we can see something in others that also has the ability to awaken a sense in ourselves, to trigger a moral awakening in ourselves, or begin to trigger the opening of clear comprehension. It's very interesting in the sutta, though, how this is mentioned. We have hiriotapa in their regard. It also says that we should have a strong sense of pema. Many of us know Pema Chodron, Venerable Bhikkhunī Pema Chodron, the founding teacher of Gampo Abbey, one of the main Buddhist monasteries in the West, and so wonderful, founded by a very wise elder Bhikkhuni. Pema is the name that was given to her, Pema in Sanskrit. So Pema then is a very important word also. And it mentions another quality of Gharava. So Gharava Many of us are familiar with the Garu Dhammas. Garava means Garava is to respect or to revere, to have strong reverence, respect, kind of real deep appreciation. Um, and it's the root word that we get the popular word guru from. So, guru in old definition means who we have that deep sense of reverence and respect for. Yes. So, like in the root of the definition, but it's very interesting here in the sutta. It mentions specifically several times that this is not necessarily only who is set up as a teacher, but can even be our fellow practitioners, and that having this sense of like morality in strong morality or clear comprehension in their regard, and having a strong sense of love, affection, belovedness, appreciation for them, plus that deep reverence and respect for them, that these are the qualities of relationality that are there that then can enable this development of discernment. And I find this interesting because these are heart qualities, not of try harder or that kind of thing, but they're very different feeling tone there, the combination of these qualities. So those that we have that sense in regard, or number two, that we think about the appropriate time to approach them, to connect with them, and then to inquire about the Dhamma, inquire about the teaching, inquire about matters of concern, anything that we do not yet have really clear, we haven't yet developed clear discernment about yet, then to practice inquiry with them respectfully, with loving care and appreciation and reverence, not only for them, but for the process. And in the process, then not only them in the process, but that includes us too. So there's the way where these qualities then include the karmas that we call our self. Means the karmas are actions of body, speech, and mind that are to be cultivated and developed for the sake of developing discernment. Some people find that they experience this naturally. It's just what they fell into in coming into this path. They met somebody or something somehow, and then they experienced that kind of hiriotapa there with them, and it started to turn the lights on in their body and mind, and then they felt that love and appreciation and even sense of beloved, belovedness in their regard, and the reverence and the respect was just there automatically. So many people experience this due to their fruits of their past karma or their merit. Then they just have that experience. But this is talking about really further developing and cultivating these qualities and bringing them to fruition. So step 3, then it mentions something that many of us have done and do, but very good to know that this is an excellent step for developing our discerning wisdom, that having heard that Dhamma and been practicing developing discernment and clear comprehension in relationship with that companion in the path, teacher, even it can be the teaching itself. But this comes from oral tradition before we had the teachings in writing, so you had to get them from living human beings. Yeah. Then to enter into seclusion of body and seclusion of mind, to further contemplate and discern this subject, this Dhamma. Seclusion of body means that we take ourselves apart, out of the crowd, into a lonely place, even if it's just a tiny closet. Yeah, I know sometimes one place that I was staying, I had a hard time finding seclusion except for when I closed the bathroom door. There, on the throne, I would sit on my Dhamma throne, and then I have the space and the time, minutes of seclusion to myself. There was another place I stayed where I found a closet. Yes, and that closet, then I could hide away there where no one could find me, and I could have that time of the physical seclusion like this. But indeed, also, if you participate in the group meditation, then one develops, in a way, develops seclusion of body by turning away from looking outside or hearing external things or touching external things. So those bodily bases that we're normally engaged with, there's the turning away from them and coming into then developing a base of physical seclusion that then enables also the next step in mental seclusion. So here the Buddha is talking about cultivating both physical seclusion and then mental seclusion to be able to apply ourselves to that Dhamma that we have seen or heard or sensed in one way or another, and to apply ourselves to discerning, to seeing and knowing that clearly for ourselves, and then penetrating that Dhamma with our knowing. Yes. So like vipassana, the vip means to, like a viper has teeth to penetrate. This is not penetration of poison into the skin. This is for penetrating our mind, penetrating delusion, really, penetrating confusion and ignorance, so that the seeing and knowing passes through that. So this is why it's called insight. Literally, vipassana, right? Pasana is to see. Um, so then, next, uh, this next stage, stage number 4, step number 4 in Pali is called silawa, and this is virtue again. Yeah. So here, overall, we're talking about morality and virtue in a way, not separated from that. But here's looking into virtue and talking about the precepts themselves, which we already did talk about, and developing the mind that sees the detriment in doing even small things carelessly. So, not just then about our secluded sitting meditation practice, but here Sila is talking about the small behaviors of body, speech, and mind, even, and practicing this discernment in this way with the mind to fine tune our clear comprehension in application, which means to fine tune and develop our virtue and moral integrity. Yeah. So this is then working with fine tuning and having the intention, the wish to avoid even any small cause of harm. Like people feel a little itch and brushing something and then just, right? Small harm, yeah? We think it's small harm. Happens so fast. Yeah. What harm does it do? Oh, just a little itch and then like this. There are so many things. Our precepts ask us to look at that specific behavior. Living beings, doing no harm, not hurting them. But how many other ways are there that are not explicated in the precepts, that are really for us to bring this sense of discernment to, and to see and know for ourselves, and then to have the mind, to have the heart, to not even engage in those small things, even no one else can see them, even it's just like to ourselves, just by our talking to ourselves, that we're doing something like this. Little irritation is there, and it's like we just like that to it silently, even no one else is there, no one can see, we think it's harmless, we do it 1,000 times a day, compulsively, habitually. The mind, the heart, to bring attention even to these behaviors, yes, with ourselves, not to mention in relationship with the other living beings and our fellow human beings. So this is called being silawan, means who has sila, the one who is devoted and to the practice of virtue and moral integrity, who is working with, applying themselves in moral awakening. And then 5, Bahusutta. I don't know if this will be familiar to some listener or not. Bahusutta means to be widely learned, is how it translates. It means to develop the mind then with regards to what we've learned internally and externally, to be a holder of that, to be able to retain and hold that, to uphold it. There's a saying that the Dhamma holds those who uphold it. What is it? And being a holder of the Dhamma, Dhammadhara. Now the name of our support foundation and our Sangha here is Dhammadharini, women who are holders or upholders of the Dhamma. In ancient times, Dhammadhara was really that meant who had the ability, who had developed the integrity to be able to be a real holder of the Dhamma. An example, the cup that is able to hold water has no cracks or holes in it. The asavas, the outflows or influxes, the afflictions then that keep us perpetually in cycles of suffering are compared to there being cracks or holes in that cup. If that were our skin and there was a wound, then bacteria can get inside. For us too, if our moral integrity is not well developed and complete, then it's like often it's the place where there's been some wound and there's still that opening there, and the negativities can get in and then they infect our heart and take it over. And then we feel like, I was fine this morning. She came in and was angry, and now I'm upset. And to her, she did it. She did it to me. How did it get into my heart? Did it come in through my eyes? Did it come in through my ears? Did it come in through my nose? She smelled bad. Did it come in through my mouth? Did it come in through my faculty of touch? Right? How did it get in? But it's like having an open sore, an open wound, and then like the bacteria is able to get in and cause an infection, and then it oozes out again. And then that infection starts to come out and can contaminate other things. Not only is it of harm to the person themselves, but then it can also cause harm to others, especially if they have a wound. If they don't have such an open wound, then that's not going to happen. It only happens where there's the opening there for it. So for Bahusutta, the retaining, the ability, cultivating the ability to be able to hold. And so this mind of reverence, of respect, of love, of cherishing, of hidayotapa is actually very important. All of those factors together, emotionally, heart-wise, mentally, psychologically, for human beings are able to help heal that container and those wounds and create the environment where the Dhamma can be held. Many people, good-hearted people, experience that they have a realization in a moment. They hear some Dhamma and it's so great, but then they drive away, they walk away, and this happens and that happens, and then they lost it. They lost it. Or they go on retreat, and in retreat, their mind develops so beautifully, their body, their speech, their mind, everything becomes so wonderful, and then they go out into the other environments like it's just flowing away. They even sometimes their grief like not able to hold. I'm not able to hold it. I'm not able to retain it. Why is that? These qualities, these factors that are mentioned here in this sutta in cultivation together are actually very, very important in terms of understanding and being able to practice in a way that will increase our ability to hold. It works on many different levels. So Bahu Sutta, who has, who is able to retain. And then it talks about also a development through, again, through discussion, through one's own and mutual examination of that teaching, and then working with these factors until that Dhamma is well penetrated in view. Here it says for Bahu Sutta, it's very nice. It says that then when we practice through these three frames, that one who does that then really can say the Dhamma, this Dhamma is good in the beginning, good in the middle, and good in the end. We say in our chanting, we chant Adi Kalayanam Maje Kalayanam Pariyosana Kalayanam. So this means good in the beginning, good in the middle, and good in the end. Whichever stage that you're at with this, then you would feel the Dhamma is good in that regard, yes. And for who is practicing with all of this, then they should be able to feel the wholeness of it. But now we've just talked about Silawa and Bahu Sutta. And this has reminded me then of the flyer that someone with Sikyu, Scholastic Institute, Choki Gyaltsen University, developed for this very teaching. Now, I'm not sure why this verse was chosen, but this verse is, I'm reminded of it because Silawa and Bahu Sutta they're there in the verse that was made for this particular series of talks. So this is from Anguttara Nikaya Book of Fours, and it says, these four who are accomplished in discernment or accomplished in wisdom, who are disciplined, confident, deeply learned, upholders of the Dhamma, and who live in accordance with the Dhamma. These four illuminate the Sangha. So beautiful. Which four? A male monastic, a female monastic, a layman, a laywoman. In this case, they really shouldn't be called a layman or a laywoman. They're by definition, they're one who is experienced and a holder, accomplished in the Dhamma and a holder of the Dhamma. Whoever, monastic or not, whatever gender, I think it means, whoever of these is wise, disciplined and deeply learned, upholding the Dhamma and living according to it, they are called the light of the Sangha. The bhikkhu who is well possessed of virtue, that's the one who is silawa, the factor that I was just talking about, and the bhikkhuni who is widely learned, that is, who is Bahu Sutta, what I was just talking about also. It is they who illuminate, the male and female disciples, also full of confidence and faith. It is they who illuminate the Sangha, light of the Sangha, they're called. So I just wanted to pause on that because in ancient times, as well as in some places still, in fact, many places still, contemporarily, there's the idea that women would be the holders of the morality and the moral virtue in the culture, and then the men would be the ones with the education, who would be widely learned. So this was something very popular in human culture for quite a while. And I find it really interesting in this particular verse and in this teaching, both the qualities of sila and of being widely learned there's no mention of gender here with regards to this teaching whatsoever. And in the poem or the verse that I just recited, which was chosen for the brochure for this teaching, there is mention of gender. But the way the Buddha has spoken about it is the polar opposite of what was present in some older cultures. And even contemporarily, there are the countries, there are the places, even some places here in the United States, where it's considered that the women would be like the moral holders of the family, and the men would be the ones to get more education or to be considered learned or smart or that kind of thing. And so common for women to be the ones to be chosen, to be pulled out of learning or pulled out of education, to engage in other supportive behaviors. So I just wanted to highlight here in this regard, in the sutta, the Buddha is not prioritizing one gender over another in any way. And when we look at a comparative teaching that does mention gender, the Buddha has actually turned this around and really put the highlight, the emphasis for the bhikkhus in cultivating morality and moral virtue, and put a highlight and emphasis for the bhikkhunis in cultivating their learning in these qualities of being Bahu Sutta, which I was just mentioning here, which is essential in being a holder, Tamadara, being a holder of the lineage or a holder of the Dhamma. Yes, so just wanted to point that out because sometimes people don't know about this, and it's still National Women's History Month here in the United States. So I thought to mention about this part. Number 6, that means there are only 2 left after this in the 8. 6, persistence. Being persistent. Here we come to right effort again. Persistent in what? Having our persistence roused. So this doesn't mean to try harder exactly, but it means to have our persistence roused for abandoning the unskillful and taking up the skillful. So with regards to those qualities of sampajanya or clear comprehension, how they work over time, then speaking about persistence in working with these. And then number 7, focuses in on our mouth. On our mouth. Not talking about foolish things. But we're talking about here then qualities that contribute to our being able to hold the Dhamma and also to be able to penetrate delusion. Developing clear comprehension. So here, there's actually the point of our speech and how we're speaking. And it's recommended here for who would practice in this way that 1, they develop a love for noble silence. Now, the commentator says that noble silence refers to the 2nd jhana, which means there's no mental chatter going on. There's no mental talking going on. But I'm not sure because of the context here. I think noble silence may also be referring to not only meditation and the quiet mind or quiet heart, not continually talking to ourselves about useless and unimportant things or worries or fantasies or, what we heard 30 years ago that somebody said to whom and all these kinds of things. Not only just in our mind, but also at our physical lips here as well. So recognizing also that this is, before it came out of our mouth, it happened in our mind. We're the first receiver of that karma. We're the maker of that karma, and we're the first receiver of it. And if we wish to develop this level of integrity and ability to hold, this is an important place where, for many people, the crack is there. And the things get through the crack somehow. They're practicing it well with so many other things, and yet with this, it slips through. So a special highlight there, nearing the end of this particular series of eight qualities for developing discerning wisdom and being able to apply. The last, all about insight. Focusing in on rising and falling. Specifically, attuning our mind and our attention to observing rising and passing, rise and fall with regards each one of the 5 aggregates. This is pure insight, yeah, for developing insight. But working with it, practicing with it, is a great support and a great contributor to the sampajanya coming into being. It's clear comprehension or intuitive knowing, insight knowledge, having the ground for being able to gel, for being able to happen. Yes, so this contemplation then of rise and fall with regards all of the 5 aggregates. Here it mentions specifically the 5 aggregates of clinging. This means attachment, craving and attachment with regards to the 5 aggregates, not only just the 5 aggregates themselves. So there's the way that there's just the 5 aggregates or just the 5 khandas, just 5 skandhas, and there's the way where there's 5 skandhas with clinging. This mentions specifically with clinging, with attachment, to focus in on looking at the rising and passing, rise and fall again and again with each one, over and again. Yeah. So I find this very, very interesting and very useful. Now, the Buddha mentions here, this leads to acquiring the as yet unacquired discernment or wisdom. Just to be clear, I'm not making this up. That's what it says right here in the sutta. This leads to the increase of such discernment. This leads to the plenitude, means making plenty of such discernment. This leads to its development, and this leads to its culmination. Oh, wonderful. And then in some it says, these factors, of all 8 of these factors, these lead to, and this is the part that I really love because all of these are about right effort, making right effort, really applying ourselves well in the things that are useful and important. But the feeling tone here again is not hard, it's not harsh, it's not about pushing more strongly. The Buddha says here that of all 8 of these factors, they lead to further endearment. How beautiful is that? But when we contemplate it, we know the truth of it. In terms of ourself, our fellows in the path, our teachers, even as we practice how we start to see other people and other living beings, this leads to further endearment, to respect, to reverence, to development, to consonance, and to unification. Now, this is very interesting also, because many religions teach about religion and unification. Sometimes people say that the Buddha didn't teach about that, but here in this Wisdom Sutta, Panya Sutta, definitely it's mentioned. The Venerable Bhikkhu Bodhi translates this series as these qualities that lead to further affection, respect, esteem, accord, and unity. So this is with regards to ourselves, number 1. Ourselves. these beloved path practitioners, these dear beings with such good and beautiful intention with regards to our fellows, our sisters, our brothers, mothers, fathers, teachers, exemplars in the Dhamma, even those who seem to be so far behind. Yes, in Pali, the Buddha mentions ayam pitamo, hiyataya, karutaya, pavanataya, pavanaya, samanya, samanyaya, ekipava, samvaratati. We had talked earlier about samanya, this quality of samanya that's at the root of what Buddhist monastics even are called, but not only for Buddhist monastic. This word is here. These practices lead to here affection, respect, esteem, accord. Here, Samanya Venerable Bhikkhu Bodhi has translated as accord. But again, as we mentioned before, this means attunement. Attunement, to be in tune, to be in balance, to be in harmony, to be in concord with the truth of all things, in fact, the actuality of them. That's not to be in friction, not to be at war, not to be fighting with the things in consonance or concord, as opposed to dissonance or discord in ourselves, with regards others, with regards all conditioned things, leading to non-friction, and why samanya is called peacefulness and harmony, to be a peaceful one. Yes, and then last to ekibhava, to unification. Maybe some people would say this means non-duality, or just not being fragmented anymore, or not feeling fractured as a human being in our hearts, in our bodies and minds anymore. The opposite of that, this kind of, I think it's okay to say healing, this kind of healing is what we're speaking about here. Yes, whatever fracture put us out with reality, delusion, really, confusion, ignorance, then with a clear discernment and applying, developing our discernment in this kind of way. Then we have as our companions and guardians mindfulness, wisdom, clear comprehension, and even samadhi, because another synonym of this ekibhava, the mind to the heart being unified, or this unification, then is related to samadhi. So that's meditation, but then there's also a unification of views. How our view, we're talking about how our view was fractured, how our view was in dissonance, and now not in dissonance, not fractured anymore. Yes. So I'm coming near to the end here. And I'd just like to mention that some of the teachers that I've worked with over these past decades, and who are well-known teachers internationally, focus in on this subject, on sampajanya and panya, in various ways with these teachings. I mentioned Ajahn Buddhadasa, very famous teacher who's already passed away, Ajahn Chah, also really focused all these qualities. He liked to summarize them as satipanya. Satipanya. So it's like the whole pack, yes, together. He emphasized these. Ajahn Sumedho, I mentioned. Mahasi Sayadaw, very famous, great teacher, already passed away, and many of our contemporary, super exemplary masters learned from him, including S.N. Goenka, who focuses strongly on the development of sampajanya and then insight, knowledge, and wisdom arising out of this. The Venerable Thich Nhat Hanh, also, not only in meditation, but in all activities, all behaviors, in the monastery, in the Dhamma center, in the place of practice, in beloved community, and the meaning, the very meaning and heart of what it means to be Sangha. The Venerable Thich Nhat Hanh has focused in on these qualities, and anyone who's ever been there actually would not be surprised to hear this list of the affection, respect, esteem, concord, and unity with regards those communities, because that aspect has not been lost in that tradition, that sense, that sensibility in living Dhamma, living practice has been passed on. Wherever it hasn't been passed on, I wish we awaken it now, because so important for the poor fractured hearts of our humanity suffering so much. These are such deeply important things, and they're not just shallow emotional Dhamma. We're talking about this is what the Buddha taught for penetrative wisdom here. Yes? Supports. One more I'd like to mention is Holiness the Dalai Lama. So, in the past 5 years, I had the good opportunity to serve as an editorial reader for His Holiness the Dalai Lama and Venerable Bhikkhunī Thupten children's book, Buddhism, One Teacher, Many Traditions. So I served as Pali language editorial reader for this book, so spent hours and hours and hours and hours poring over this text down to each small word and these things. What does it mean between Pali, Sanskrit, Chinese, Tibetan, like this? So I just want to mention His Holiness the Dalai Lama's words on Sampajanya here in his chapter 4 of this book, which we have here in our library if anyone would like to see and take a look. The Higher Training in Ethical Conduct. That's chapter 4. So we're coming all the way back around again as the Dhamma wheel turns around and the ethics flow into the meditation, which flows into the wisdom, which flows into the ethics, which, right? Did you ever see these three circles flowing into each other within the whole circle? That's the path. So in this book, His Holiness the Dalai Lama says that according to the Sanskrit tradition, which he also calls the Nalanda tradition, this wisdom realizing selflessness, here he's speaking about sampajanya, his clear comprehension, his discernment, eliminates obscurations from the root. For wisdom to function properly, it must be accompanied by samadhi. To gain deep samadhi, firm mindfulness, and he calls it introspective awareness, rather than discerning wisdom, but introspective awareness, sampajanya, is needed to subdue the subtle internal hindrances and afflictions. These are initially cultivated through retraining coarse external hindrances of non-virtuous physical and verbal actions through practicing ethical conduct. And then he talks about something I don't know about. He says, even in the tantric teaching, ethical restraint aims to overcome and to effectively overcome even the most subtle of the mental obscurations. So I've mentioned this just because it seemed like His Holiness the Dalai Lama was talking about kind of the same thing as what Panya Sutta and what these other teachings were talking about here. So I'd like to stop then with a verse from a poem at the end of this chapter in His Holiness the Dalai Lama's book. I'm sorry I didn't write down the author of the poem. Perhaps someone else will know and be able to mention. This poem is the final gatha. This is the final gatha of the verse, and it goes: guard well with utmost striving with personal integrity and all due respect. Do not give in to indifference and indolence, lest you should squander the very root of steadfast well-being. So, last, in the Dhammapada, the Buddha also gives injunction in this regard, enjoins us in this regard. This is Dhammapada 112 to 115. Here the Buddha says, along the lines of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, or vice versa, a single day lived with full awareness, that is sampajanya, in profound effort, is greater than 100 years lived in static lethargy. A single day lived with full awareness of rising and passing is greater than 100 years lived unaware of rise and fall. A single day lived awake to the undying state is greater than 100 years unseeing, unknowing deathlessness. A single day lived awake to profound truth, to the profound Dhamma, is greater than 100 years of life lived in unawareness. So this ends my reflection on clear comprehension, discernment, discerning wisdom, and its application in the work of
Sadhu, 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 anumodama.
So now we started at a later time or an earlier time, either a half hour earlier or a half hour later due to daylight savings time. And I think that we have a couple of minutes left. If anyone here or anyone there would like to has any question or would like to offer any shared reflection on this subject.
I have a brief question. I didn't catch what Pema meant. You had mentioned it, but I didn't catch the meaning.
Pema is like dear, beloved, affection, endearment. This sutta has in both its introduction and then it's in its refrain and in its conclusion. It mentions both Pema and Piya in Pali. And Pema is Sanskrit prema, and Piya is Sanskrit priya. Now, actually, some of us know we have Sri Lankan friends and Indian friends. Name Priya is very popular. It would be like naming your child dear in a way, or beloved. So this is the quality of love, quality of endearment. And sometimes for those who do initial studies of the Noble Eightfold Path, if you learn about not only just memorizing, Samma Ditti, right view, Samma Sankappo, right intention, Samma Vacha, like this, rather than just that, if one learns even the basic explication of what it means to have right view, or what right intention means, one comes then to right speech, and learning the factors of right speech is the place where many people first encounter Piya Vacha. So this would be like some people say that it's to speak with loving kindness, but it means to speak in a way that will be endearing, or will elicit appreciation or affection. And here, the affection or the appreciation or the sense of belovedness is not being linked to attachment. It certainly can. Love can be linked to attachment, compassion can be linked to attachment, appreciation and joy can be linked to attachment. Many kinds of things can be linked to attachment. In this case, it's not being linked to attachment, it's the quality itself that's being cultivated and developed. And this is what's recommended in the Book of the Eights, in the second sutta, for these 8 factors. Then the piya and the pema, those qualities in the group are mentioned again and again, so that it's like the quality of endearment or belovedness plus respect and reverence, and these qualities together are the qualities that are being then recommended. And not only just working with when they arise naturally or spontaneously, but we're talking about a course of cultivation for those who've worked with the immeasurables meditations, the 4 Brahma Viharas, and working with them as immeasurables, then surely, people often experience love being something that happens spontaneously and is so powerful, maybe even completely out of control. But working with and developing the 4 immeasurables, then we work with actually bringing it up very much, I want to say, in a way, in control, because there's an intention, and then with that intention, it's like, putting the supportive factors in place, then it comes into being, and it's nurtured and grown and then spread out widely, even infinitely, in an unlimited way. And some of the teachers will ask you to spread out infinitely and then come back into your own body down to like the very center of your own heart, and then spread out again, and to all those that you love and to all those that you don't know, and to even thinking specifically about those you don't love, or you feel conflicted about, or feel afflicted by, or whatever that may be specifically. So it's really applying and directing the mind, and learning and working with causation. So for those who've worked with this, then right away, it's not just whether it exists naturally or not. And we're not talking about something that's unnatural here. I've heard people say that they feel like it's unnatural to cultivate these things, and somehow that it's inauthentic or that it's unreal. They feel someone intentionally sharing metta or intentionally being compassionate, and they're like, no, no, I don't like it. Don't want it. Only wanting it if it's happening like really spontaneously, in a way, like valuing what's natural but out of control in a way. I think for such a person, they should really like cyclones and earthquakes and things like that, because it's like, these are the forces of nature that are like, you can say for sure they're naturally arising, not according to anyone's intention and out of control, yes? But for human emotion, for it to be pure and for it to be natural, it doesn't have to be happening out of control. And that's something that we really discover in this path of practice, because we're tapping into the source of these beautiful and wholesome qualities in our mind. And it's like, you could say, what is it? If we went according to what some people say, then if someone has deliberately tapped into the mountain spring deep in the mountain, and then tapped into that spring water and then takes it out, it shouldn't be called natural, right? Because it's been done intentionally. There's a question, just a question for you. For us, we're intentionally tapping into it. And rather than just being blown about by the winds of the emotions as they blow this way or blow that way, or being carried away by their rushing river or volcanic explosion of the emotions or whatever it may be, rather than just that, we're learning about them and coming to know ourselves more and understanding conditional causation. We get savvy, we get wise, and the practices that are prescribed and recommended for us really develop this. And it's true, there's a way that people can be trying to be caring or compassionate, and you just sense it's not coming from their heart. So they're trying in a superficial way, but it hasn't touched into the actual sense of it somehow. And there are complaints about that. That I understand, I appreciate that a little bit more. And it's true, we shouldn't just try to put on the face of it without tapping in and really touching in and experiencing for ourselves. That would be like a person who only learns the text and recites it, and then they don't really do the work of the practice and then experience it for themselves. But still, I feel even such a pretense, in a way, if you called it a pretense, is better than other kinds of behavior that are much worse. It's going to be better for that person. Maybe they have something else. The wolf is howling in their heart. And if they acted on that, they could do something that would be gravely harmful to themselves or to others. Yeah. And so if that's going on in their heart and they do restrain that and then choose to say words that are at least trying to be kind and nice and compassionate, rather than giving voice to what is not kind and not nice and not compassionate and reaping the negative consequences of that, I think it's better. I think it's better. They've protected themselves from danger. Of course, we shouldn't stop there with that. And we need to do that underlying work. But in the short run, for the short-term protection from harm, it's still worth it to do that. I think that's my point of view on this. Yeah. Thank you for your question.
Can I just say something real brief?
Yes, please.
That reminds me of this slogan in AA that says, "Fake it until you make it."
The slogan in AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, and probably in many other forms of something A, something A, something
12,
A,
12
12-step programs. Now we have Buddhist 12-step programs as well, not only one, but several of them. Ayase Vijana mentioned the slogan, "Fake it till you make it."
So you understand it intellectually, but you haven't quite gotten it yet.
Yeah. And I mean, as we talked about earlier, the precepts are, in a way, can also be like that. The 5 precepts are supposed to be the natural behavior of Arahantas. Yeah? And yet, in terms of practice, the Arahantas don't really have to undertake the precepts. The ones who really need to undertake the precepts, who are helped by consciously undertaking those behaviors, who are protected by that and supported by that, are the people who may have other things going on in mind. Mostly, yeah? It's said that when we undertake the precepts, even if we naturally wouldn't have killed anything, naturally wouldn't have lied, naturally wouldn't have stolen something, naturally wouldn't have committed sexual misconduct or used intoxicating drinks or drugs, even if we wouldn't have done that today or this morning or this afternoon, tonight, whenever it may be, naturally, it's said that undertaking the precepts and taking a determination and then holding that develops something further. There's a merit and there's a benefit in that that's beyond it just naturally happening. So here we see, in terms of training, in terms of a cultivation of supportive factors, there's something going on that's not only the natural part, but other factors as well that could be called unnatural, in a way, but not undharmic. Not I say this because one of the translations of Dhamma is nature, so someone might say it's unnatural, but not undharmic. It's in accordance with the Dhamma and develops that ability, contributes to the ability to be able to hold the Dhamma. That quality of intention, determination, and then holding that's there. If it were compared to a muscle, then it would be like flexing and developing or working that muscle. So an aspect of the path work, that when we develop this psychological capability in one way, it can also be applied to something else. So even we're developing it with regards to one aspect of sila, it can be applied to other aspects of sila. It can be, and this is part of the foundational teachings, it can also be applied to, there's a way it can be applied to samadhi, applied to meditation. And we're just hearing so much about these exactly these factors, means how this can happen, especially via the work with discernment. Can be then applied to wisdom. So applied to effective discernment. Was that clear? Now I want to check in with those who have come from far away, who are here, and also via the web. Do you have any question?
Yes, maybe I have. It's a tough one, really. You spoke about.
I like tough questions.
Thank you. You spoke about 84,000 parts of or moments in a day, and 85,000 vows that need to be respected to be aware of each and every passing moment. It is quite a hard thought, really, because at the same time we also know that there are 84,000 what is the name exactly? Delusions.
Oh, 84,000 delusions. Yes, that's right.
Delusions, yes. That, so if we put everything together, that in each moment we need to be careful and mindful about 84,000 possibilities of delusion and keeping our mind awake. But at the same time, that is my question goes to this direction. Happily enough, all delusions are only deriving from the three major ones, the three poisons. And if we understand the mechanism, then we also can develop basic virtues. Isn't it so? That help us in solving all this process of arising and falling, and understanding how karma works and keeping our mind in the right track. Is this a kind of understanding that goes into the right direction or not?
That's very much in the right direction. In fact, I feel like that's really an excellent summary. And yes, it's true. There's the teaching on 84,000 moments, and then for morality, then we say 84,000 precepts because of discerning what's wholesome or unwholesome, or what's wise or what's skillful. And as you mentioned, then there's the the opportunity for 84,000 delusions or 84,000 opportunities for delusion or afflictions in those moments. And then also there's the teaching on the 84,000 Dhamma khandhas, which means 84,000 Dhamma teachings. And so for this teaching on the sampajanya, 4 aspects of sampajanya that I was talking about earlier, then this is really the thing for the sapaya sampajanya, and the koshara sampajanya means number 2 and number 3 that are there. That is for this situation, which kusala dhamma or which kusala karma, which wholesome, excellent, beautiful, healthy, helpful, liberating, beneficial Dhamma teaching is the one that best matches this very moment, this very situation. And then the kochara is then to apply that. That's your domain. And this is the domain, your field of practice, your field of application of the Dhamma. And for who recollects the Dhamma in this kind of way and holds it, then this is the case where I kind of love the images of Kuan Yin or Avalokiteshvara with the vase that's holding the water and pouring it out like this, the water of the deathless, Amrita, elixir. Then we could consider ourselves then rightly to be the holder of the Dhamma, and then have whatever is that matching Dhamma to apply, like medicine or like elixir, to whatever that situation is. Now the situation itself, in a way, is just empty. It's only the discriminating mind that will make it into one thing or another. And if there's craving, if there's then attachment and delusion, then there will be making something out of it that's tainted by that craving and by that attachment. And at that point, that's when you need the Dhamma as medicine, right? Because there's an ill that's happening there. And so then you apply the Dhamma as medicine. But really, it's one aspect for right effort, which we came back to again and again. In the Noble Eightfold Path, for the pathfold of right effort speaks to 4 circumstances. So even the situation, we see it as just empty. Right effort will say to give rise to what is wholesome and liberating within that situation. If we perceive that the situation has merit, right effort says to develop and cultivate that merit and bring it to fruition, what is healthy, helpful, beneficent, blessed, wholesome, and liberating. Yeah. And if there is any defilement present, no, let me back up one. No defilement present, then we should be clear not to do what will give rise to the defilement, or to the delusion, to the confusion, to the affliction, to the distortion. If we know what causes, it's an empty situation, but we know what we can think that will cause such a cycle to rise up, then we be sure not to do that. And if it's already started, then we learn, we see clearly what kind of Dhamma medicine will bring it down as soon as possible. So either to reduce or ultimately to completely eliminate it and clear it up. Yeah. So even we're just looking at the situation as like an empty palette or an empty slate, right effort still gives advice there for this practice as to what we can do. And if there's something already going on that we perceive that's already arisen, right effort, the 4 right strivings, or sampadaniya, padana, the 4 padanas, 4 bases of right striving or right effort, they tell us exactly what to do with it. depending on what it is, and how to apply the Dhamma. So what Dhamma will develop this that is good now further and bring it to furtherance and fruition, fulfillment, and what will cut off, eliminate, reduce, and end any remainder of unclarity, especially. Because as you said, it boils down to the three. All those 84,000 delusions and defilements boil down to the three. And even those three boil down into just ignorance, just rooted in ignorance and delusion. And that's why this particular Dhamma that we're talking about today is so essential and crucial, is because it directly counters ignorance. Seeing and knowing, developing, cultivating clear comprehension, this type of discernment and wisdom, this discerning wisdom, goes right to the root of ignorance. And so that's why this particular one is so powerful and crucial. So I'd like to end there for today. And then also this will be the end of our this 4 lecture and discussion series on moral awakening. And let me check here for my fellow monastics if they have any chant of dedication that they would like to join me in. It would be suitable for wrapping up, yes? So there's the chant that we chanted last time, or 2 times ago, which is really very wonderful one. And I'm going to chant now in English. And these are the verses of sharing and dedication, or sharing and aspiration. Now let us chant the verses of sharing and aspiration.
Through the goodness that arises from my practice, may my spiritual teachers and guides of great virtue, my mother, my father, and my relatives, the sun and the moon, and all virtuous leaders of the world, may the highest gods and evil forces, celestial beings, guardian spirits of the earth, and the Lord of death, may those who are friendly, indifferent, or hostile, may all beings receive the blessings of our lives. May they soon attain the threefold bliss and realize the deathless. Through the goodness that arises from my practice, and through this act of sharing, may all desires and attachments quickly cease, and all harmful states of mind, until I realize Nibbana in every kind of birth. May I have an upright mind, with mindfulness and wisdom, austerity and vigor. May the forces of delusion not take hold, nor weaken my resolve. The Buddha is my excellent refuge. Unsurpassed is the protection of the Dhamma. The solitary Buddha is my noble Lord. The Sangha is my supreme support. Through the supreme power of all these, may darkness and delusion be dispelled. Samma Sambuddho Bhagava Buddham Bhagavantam Abhivadami. Sawakato Bhagavata Dhammo Dhammam namasami.
Supatipanno
Bhagavato Sāvaka Sangho Sangham Namami.
Thank you very much, Tathālokā Devi,
Thank you.
for the teachings. It was a great honor and pleasure and treasure to host you on Sigyu. So we hope to hear from you again. And thank you very much to all the nuns from Damandarini to have supported it as well. Thank you everybody who attended the teachings. Yes, thank you. And may the benefits spread to all beings and lead
Sadhu,
them to the ultimate achievements.
sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Anumodami.
Good night and good day.